So guys, we are looking already into a public test server. It's a process as well, and obviously we need to make sure that that process is smooth to log into a public test server as well, and to get a structure order in what we need from a public test server. Sad we couldn't have the Healer XP working in this build. We were hoping to. It's working on the dev client, it's not working when we build it. Similar issue that we have on some domination parts. So obviously we need to go through that to make sure whatever that is, why compiled version doesn't run as intended. We were hoping to have it included in this patch, but yeah, we'd have to wait. We're gonna be able to put red priest into our houses. You won't be able to put priests in houses in this patch, only strongholds and keep. And when we deploy the TC package, that's when you will get more options to define cities and additional assets with additional service and controls from NPCs. Can you tell us exactly how much stem Regen has been changed with the body heat changes? I think it was roughly around 30%, give or take a few percentages. That's what we estimate roughly from the heat that was running on Mirland that shouldn't be running. So it's quite a noticeable difference when running around, consuming stamina. Can we get the old Team soundtrack maxed back into current one? We are adding all of them, so you will have them all, and hopefully a few additional ones in the future. When will you turn on subscription? I want to support my devs as soon as possible. Please turn the subs on. So obviously that is mixed opinions, understandable. We do want to reach obviously stability and make sure there's an interest content-wise. So we still haven't decided on an exact date yet. Obviously we need to take that step sooner or later to continue, hopefully be able to grow and spend resources in improving the product. You know, there's this one thing, just sitting on the influx of money getting from the release will only do so much. Obviously we need to make sure we spend them in a proper way to actually improve things, expand things, and make sure the game gets better. That's what we are looking at, looking to expand and how we can improve things. Obviously since we paused everything, we have been standing quite still, so we simply need to get back on track, and then we will have to decide when it's time to start the subscription. Will Necromancy be locked behind one dungeon, or will there be multiple locations to get lore spells? We're working on something exciting when it comes to discovering a lot of necromancy, but we're also spreading quite a bit of it in various locations where humanoids are collecting necromancy stuff. But there will be something completely new added along with that patch that will bring a new way of dungeon explore and discover things and do different types of challenges. So it should bring a lot of great fun things for those interested in that. And rough ideas about more animals with armor bags, nothing in this regards on the roadmap so far. Yeah, so we talked about that a little bit previous stream. One of the main bottleneck we have in the development is actually animation work, and armor bags for pets and mounts is exactly that. So we're all looking into a few animators that may be potential someone that can work with us, and if that goes as planned, then that means we can add additional work in those fields. Because right now we are spending all the animation resources on main core things and creatures, player stuff. We have the new shields. So that means we need additional manpower to put dedicated on pet gear and also the other mounts and mountable creatures. Will Haven ever become free to play for new players? Yes, that is the plan. We did reach the conclusion that that will be a suitable way of giving players to have a chance to try out the game later on when we implement this in an isolated, protected area, which is the Haven. And whenever they feel that, you know, they want to push it further and start playing it for real on Mirland, that's when they can take that step. So we find that as a suitable step for us to take. I can't say the time frame for that at this point yet though. Would there be clothing added to the game? Yes, we already have one clothing set, and there will be many more to come over time, including medium and heavy armors. We open alts again soon or release a new land like Saudoka so they can hold more players. So we're not done. As I mentioned, this patch didn't only include the content patch on the roadmap, but also a huge part on the back end that is heavily affecting the server capacity. That part was that failed, so we had to take things down to do certain revert in one of those areas and then deploy the server again as soon as we can, while we continue working on that on the side. So the plan here is, as soon as we have that in a place where we are aiming for and feel confident that we will reach, that means we never have to touch that part of the capacity work again on the core, in the network core, which obviously allows us to not having to spend time on the backend that isn't visible, that is very sensitive, and today that part was affected. As soon as we're done with that and we're happy we have a good number on Myrland, we don't intend to work more in that field, because the next step is, yes, another continent such as Sardica, which means we will double the amount when we deploy that server in terms of pure player capacity. But like I mentioned, we're not fully done with that step on the back end. So that works continue a little bit more, hopefully not too long, and then we can let that be. With this update, I wonder how we can deploy guards in castle, just placing them like furniture, or have already fixed deploy location already in castle. So there's quite a lot of big complex features coming along with the TC work, and like I mentioned, it doesn't just come everything in one patch and that's it. So the first packages includes a few different types of buildings, constructions that you can build at your city, and those will allow you to access new types of services and functions. And one of them is guard posts, like a barrack you can build, and as long as you hire and pay the upkeep for those NPCs, they will work for you. And those could be guards. You can align yourself to one of the nations if you want to join the Tindemic Empire, or play outlaw or whatever, So, and there will be a few options here. This is still some of the stuff that is being worked on in terms of what kind of detailed control it will have. So obviously there's an area where they see and act depending on what rules you're given to them. And we're also looking to see if we can add additional steps where you can tell them to patrol in certain ways or follow some specific commands. But the first step obviously is that you'll be able to place them and they patrol or have one specific area, and they also, use the line of sight whenever they can see one of those that are not allowed to be there, or enemies, or whatever the rules that you may have set up, they will engage depending on that. Do you intend to add more tameable pets in the game? Yes, a ton. We only have a few more creatures that we plan to add on Myrland, but then obviously we have several types of continents, which is completely different from Myrland, that will have their own wildlife creatures and monsters as well. And many of these will be tameable and dominatable, and pretty much all of them will be raised again with necromancy if you decide to. Why was weapon weights be reverted? There's a line where specific types of latency between each others from the server simply doesn't have the time to register and play the animation properly, which means it uses the prediction normalization system to update and synchronize it quickly to get someone that have different latency towards each others. To make sure that you get the same action, it have to kind of skip forward, and in that case it was so quick that you didn't see the swing or any of that, a charge or swing, which meant the PvP became unreliable between regions in the world with different latency. So that sweet spot that we have refined over the beta was surpassed with a bug fix that actually didn't allow light materials to be as fast as they were intended. So with that bug fixed, we saw that now they went through that fast latency threshold, which caused issues in fighting between different latencies. So we had to revert the speed change to make sure that it's still within the proper latency range, so everyone can at least see what's going on and react based on that. Guards were broken last night. So what's going on there? One of the reasons we're deploying the callable guards is because of that. That doesn't mean that they are broken. So what happens is that the guards holds aggro, and players are trying to, find a clever way of trying to hold off that aggro to be able to bypass their protection and fight people in front of them. So if that guards already hold the aggro on someone else, then yes, he won't switch targets directly even though you're standing in front of him doing a crime. Not good, right? So this is why we add the guard commands in this patch. So in that case, you will always be able to call a guard to protect you in that case. So it's an important step to make sure the security in cities are proper. Alright guys, what do you think about our Tupilak 2.0? Quite the upgrade from the first game. It's corrected following Matt's carefully design behind what is a Tupilak. It's not just a fancy name, it's actually proper design, thought and lore behind these creatures and what it means and how they are created by a necromancer. So there's a lot of depth as always when it comes to Matt's work in these fields, which is really awesome. Will they all look like that, or will it change based on the creature parts? Yeah, so this is the thing. Like I mentioned before, this can go quite insane, right? In terms of every single body parts changing. a lot of things are doable in these systems, but it also comes down so much in manpower. If I were given a team of 100 dedicated artists, then yeah, I would go crazy in these fields. But we need to be realistic, right? We are still a team of 30 people, slowly growing, which means we need to have an intelligent system to make a lot of interesting use of it. But yes, so what we're starting on here first is that we're actually going to we're looking at 3 different types, or a few different types where you can define your Tupilak in a, like if you want it more agile using 4-legged creatures like Kogr and mix that with other parts, then yes, we intend to have another version that represent that type a bit more. You want something fast, agile, weaker, or if you're going something even more heavy, slower, tanky. And we said that this is the in-between, the mid version of those. So we have some quite interesting plans in expanding this as well. And then we're looking at the Death Knight Shade, those that were also very specific. We're looking into see how they fit correctly this time around, how you make them, and so they also make sense. Because you know, one of the big change here is now that all creatures can be awakened again. So we make a summer version of all of them. It's cute. Can you guys increase the render distance yet? Unfortunately, not yet. So, like I mentioned before, the backend stuff we're working on as well, which is invisible to you guys, but it's very important parts for us to get in that state. We're happy with it. Now we never have to touch that again, because that means we have the capacity we have set up as a goal for Mirland, and that will also then be the capacity for every continent, upcoming continent. The part that we actually reverted today is the part that we wanted to have running for a few days to make sure everything is solid, and then we would be able to start tweaking some of those functions such as render distance and guild information and gear stats, you know, stuff like that, that obviously makes the gaming experience improve when it comes to seeing who you're running into. So for now it has to remain on loading that kind of data quite late until we have that backend part into the server again. Faster ways to lose weight, please. So there should be components for food and maybe alchemy that should greatly help in this field. So I think one of those components comes with alchemy in the alchemy effect and roadmap. There should also be food component that helps to gain or lose weight more efficiently. We plan on making things spawn more often after killing them since we're down to 1 server. We are looking over that, yes, and we're also working on one major thing that you can see on the development that will most likely go into the game in the upcoming patches already, and that is the interest list. The interest points. What the interest points, I'm actually getting quite excited because it's really cool stuff. It shows a living, breathing world, history, and recent happenings in game world. So some cool stuff happening in the world. Some of it tells a story, some doesn't. And we will also use these interest points for something interesting in many cases, such as there could be different types of special creatures being also attracted by those interest points, different types of light sources, you know, on the horizon in the darkness that you can find them, and that could mean anything from hidden things, treasures, bandits, humanoids, to different types of creatures. So there will be, we calculated, it looks to be 1,400 of these spread out on Mirland. So a lot of them, which means for those that are interested in just exploring and finding things, will obviously be much more greatly rewarded by just moving around and encountering these places. So that will add quite a bit. But yeah, we're always looking to see how the balance is in terms of respawn and loot tables and such. What about Rise, Entanglement, and Invasion? So we are preparing to obviously reach those steps as well. Sounds solo friendly. Yes, many of them will be solo friendly. Some of them may be obviously a little bit more challenging. We are getting closer to kickstarting some of those world activities that will obviously steer things up even more, such as invasions, that is the constant threats on Mirland that you can also read about in the lore. So for sure, we have a lot of plans there. Can you add an ability to move the head left and right while running like Arma 3? That may be a possibility, yes. We can see the need for that when being chased, obviously. Right now, it's a danger to move around to see if you're still chased, because it could be that last whack getting you, right? So now you have to kind of adapt for that in mind. So we can see it's obviously a big help when it comes to that part. It comes with a few natural things, like if you have a precast spell, what happens when you look around you to aim? Does it ignore your crosshair, so you can't use that? So you actually have to turn around. There's things like that, right? And then obviously when we're looking to do the Unreal 5 step with VR support, we're also looking how that will work. And yes, we do plan to add the FOIP system where it actually captures motions in your head from a normal webcam if you want to use that. And yeah, that will also capture whenever VoIP is used, it detects words. We can have movement on the mouth, and we hope that we can mimic your head tracing movements at a certain degree so it looks interesting and somewhat realistic. Yeah, we were meant to change the open door to 4 seconds. It is 5 currently, so we will tweak those timers a little bit. Obviously, it's there for very important reasons, as you can guess. Now, when you don't have to type in password, fiddle around with keys, etc., which have a natural balance, we make that easy, quality of life, by just saving that information and you just push it. But we need some kind of timer for a very important balance reason. Now that UE5 is released, do you have an estimation date to upgrade them to? We don't have the date yet. We are going through it, have been doing for quite a while. There's a few things we need to confirm before we feel confident in taking the leap, because there's no going back when we moved over to Unreal 5. So we want to make sure that step doesn't add even more chaos due to a new engine. Obviously we're careful here, but it looks promising. The intention is to take the step as soon as we can, because as we mentioned before, there are a few good improvements that also come with that engine. We want to make it happen sooner rather than later. And we are prepared as much as we can already. We just need to go through like 2 main areas until we're confident this will work, it's stable, and we're not killing the performance. But in locked chest, you have to find the keys. If you found a locked chest, you will always be able to find a key that fits. Enhance hotkey, enable criminal action. That's a good quality of life, and yes, we plan to add that as a hotkey. What about tower shields? Now this is a big if. I don't want to promise anything, but if things goes remotely smooth, it should be included in the next patch, the next content patch. But I want to add a very big if, so don't put me to the cross if it doesn't make it in the next one. If it doesn't make it in the next one, it will for sure be in the next one. Any flying mounts? No, you won't be having any typical flying mounts. There will be special cases later down the road when we have further expanded AI. But traditionally you will have on-ground mounts and very many different types. Shapelifting spells, please. Yeah, so that is one of the schools that you can learn, and it won't be in the typical way like, you know, some MMO, some RPG games and Diablo, where you just completely mold into a perfect bear and running around. I've discussed this with Mats. How does this fit in Mortal Online? Our shapeshifting. And as you know, Mats have a lot of great ideas and deep plans for all of these areas, and it all makes sense. There's an explanation behind everything, and you know, a lore behind everything. So I want to make sure that all that fits and is correct this time around, and we are happy and set with that for the future. Can we get horse jump, Henrik? I want that too. So sooner or later, yes. Can we get point of interest to fight so soon, like relics, all things drive PvP? There will be relics, and we're working on 1,400 interest points, and we will have nation conflicts. We have guild wars in the next patch, so you can force declare guilds. There are coming more and more options to have conflicts. Wipe be released. We're not wiping. The game world is persistent, and there are several big components and, you know, resources, more land coming over time, and it's ever evolving. So there's no reason to wipe. The only thing we're wiping is cheating and dupes that we have had. Could you expand the changes to housing item limits? We expanded them a little bit to fit the scale from small to big. So just following that logical step. Taking one step further in that, giving players more options to decorate and store items, especially now when you will actually be able to team use housing that were more limited before with keys and all that. We're not done by any means in terms of it won't expand further, but we need to make sure that performance is king here. We don't just want to make it explode that whenever you walk into a player city, you go down to 10 FPS or crash. That would be bad. So we take it in careful steps and monitoring the cost and all that. There are several red priests, and now you can hire your own priest as a stronghold or keep owner. And later on you will have more options to control those along with TC updates. There are spikes to happen again when there are hotspots of avatars player interaction in certain nodes. That is the part that will be fixed with the backend optimization patch that was online this morning, but we had to revert that part. Hopefully as soon as possible it will be back to finally have those choke points removed. Next patch still on track for end of April. It is. I can't say an exact date. The goal is still end of April, which also means, you know, early May, depending on days as well. We try to always release early in the week, and sometimes those days overlap in a tricky way to be within the same month, right? So already want to flag for, you know, we may overlap days in the months. Love the game, love the first one too, despite all the bugs. But why do we have some of the same bugs that were in 1 that are now in 2? A big one being floating mobs or mobs in walls. Believe it or not, but floating mobs are not the same bug that we had in the first game. There are different reasons for that. And the floating mobs that we have here and there in the world is something we are looking into. It's something with the value and size of the spawners we are suspecting, and we are working on trying to pinpoint that one. Yeah, obviously a sad bug that we should be fixing as soon as we can. Would I add placeable traps to the game? Yes, we have plans to add traps to the game. Yeah, so things are starting with necromancy plays. You will see are pushing the boundaries in what kind of PvE exploration we will have, and a lot more after that as well. And yeah, traps will be a part that we both, obviously PvE world traps, but also player-made traps. We have assassin skills coming into the game, where you'll be able to use poison and traps and learn specific moves to pretty much work as an assassin. And yeah, why don't you just add an ally system? Things are not that easy just to... Why not do that? You guys are stupid. No, sorry guys, I didn't mean you guys are stupid. I was meaning that you tell us that we are stupid of disabling your ally system, which we actually don't have. That's what I meant to say. Okay.